G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for being here watching my content. I really do appreciate it. You are here today because it's Tuesday and it's time to read some rugby news. So last week, New Zealand Rugby has finally confirmed all the speculations, all the rumors. Turns out it's all true. New Zealand Rugby is, in fact, operated by a bunch of absolute idiots and morons. Okay? Last week, they made a public announcement, like this was some good news, that they're going to be appointing a new All Blacks coach following the Rugby World Cup within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Completely undermining Ian Foster and the current team that is in charge to take the All Blacks to the Rugby World Cup. Okay? I mean, if you think that's already pretty stupid, okay, it's even more unbelievable that they made this announcement because 2 weeks ago, the frontrunner for the job, Razor Robertson, Scott Robertson, the head coach of the Crusaders, basically came out to a public media session and just hinted that he's got the job, okay? And he had that just hint led to a huge backlash 2 weeks ago to that saying New Zealand Rugby, you should not even be considering to replace the coach before the Rugby World Cup, right? So that already led to a huge backlash, and New Zealand Rugby had to come out and say, no, look, we haven't confirmed. That's not true. That's not what he meant when he hinted at it. That's not what's happening, right? With that happened just 2 weeks ago, with that, dumpster fire barely putting out, still smoke coming out of that, these morons thought they just announced it publicly that they're going to be finding a new coach. Honestly, what is the application process to finding a job at New Zealand Rugby? Can I get a job? Like, seriously, can I get a job at New Zealand Rugby? Because I am pretty sure I'm not going to be this stupid and announce this. Okay? I'm pretty sure I'm going to say no to this. I can't remember what happened 2 weeks ago and knowing that this is going to be a bad idea when Razor hinted at it, and somehow these morons dressed up in suits came out and announced this publicly. Anyway, so yeah, obviously within this announcement, Ian Foster not happy at all, understandably, right? Fozzie, as much as I like to make fun of him, because obviously I'm an Aussie, I like to throw a bit of banter, I do respect Ian Foster, okay? He has taken the All Blacks he has been assistant coach for the All Blacks in previous World Cups. He has done an absolute great job for the All Blacks to help the All Blacks achieve World Cup glory in previous years as assistant coach, and for him to take over the head coach job, whatever you say, it's not something that, he definitely deserved a shot at the All Blacks head coach, right? As much jokes as I like to say about him, I do think that he definitely was deserving of an opportunity at the job. So he has come out in retaliation and basically said, hey, I'm not going to apply the job. Despite the fact that he has repeatedly said that he's going to be winning the World Cup and maintaining his job at the head of the All Blacks, as the All Blacks head coach, he's basically, after this announcement, come out and say, you know what, screw you guys, I'm not going to be applying for the job. I am leaving after Rugby World Cup. So yeah, really stupid for New Zealand Rugby. I mean, if you know you're going to be losing your job, it's just such a sour note to be left for the coach as well, right? So obviously, everybody's come out and slammed New Zealand Rugby for being stupid. A lot of people basically said that, you're actually giving Ian Foster a scapegoat to say, hey, you've undermined me, we've lost the World Cup, oh well, it's your fault. So you've actually given me an excuse now to lose the Rugby World Cup. So it's really stupid for New Zealand Rugby. But yeah, as we mentioned, Scott Robertson, Razor, the Crusaders head coach, is currently the front runner, and with Jamie Joseph, who's coaching Japan at the moment, the second in charge. There were also some talks of potentially the former Ireland coach Joe Schmidt potentially becoming in charge as well. Joe Schmidt is currently a assistant coach to the All Blacks already. He's actually potentially be first in line, in fact, over Scott Robinson, because Robinson hasn't had any international coaching experience. So yeah, there's a lot of talk about who's going to be the next coach, and this just stupidity that everybody's just no one's happy in New Zealand. The players not happy either. Sam Cane basically saying that Foster's writings on the wall. Keep in mind that Ian Foster was going to get sacked following that big losing streak in the Rugby Championship, and it was the players that backed him. Basically, had a big weighting on him keeping his job, right? So knowing that the relationship he's had or he has with the players currently, this is not going good to go down well with the players, okay? Because it's like family, it's like one of your friends, one of your best mates going to get fired. You're not going to be happy about that. As much as it's just unbelievably unprofessional to say the least, right? As a result, the former CEO Dave Moffett came out and called out the current CEO of New Zealand Rugby, Mark Robinson, again, essentially, as to what is he doing at the job, right? He's pointed out a few interesting stats from what he's talking about. The board members, he actually pointed out that in New Zealand Rugby at the moment, currently are just in the board because they want to rub shoulders with the players, and they all have like their own business and the back they're running, and they're not really dedicated to rugby as a passion. They just want to be on the board to be friends with the players, right? So that's one thing he's kind of noticed with the current setup of the New Zealand Rugby in the back end. And he also said that the New Zealand Rugby also currently reads too much into the media, making those decisions to make it sound good. I actually don't agree, because obviously they don't read the media because they're just absolute morons by the looks of things. But he does think that they do get swayed a lot by the media, and obviously a lack of respect to Ian Foster. Just unbelievably stupid what the New Zealand Rugby did last week. Like, it's just like this guy. If you want to know who the CEO is, it's this guy, Mark Robinson. I look at Super Rugby. I look at the stupid Super Round. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. I honestly, I was joking on the weekend with my reviews that neither Rugby Australia or New Zealand Rugby have anybody competent to set up a Super Round, right? And it turns out New Zealand Rugby is actually incompetent in doing their jobs. It's unbelievable. So yeah, let's go move on to Super Rugby. Essentially, a big incident came out on the weekend. Ardie Savea had a incident where he was involved in a bit of a push and shove, and he got sent off for basically dragging this guy, Carter Gordon, out of basically aggressively dragged him out of a group, almost threw him to the ground. He was yellow carded for that. Afterwards, he received a bit of banter and did a throw slit action. I thought that was pretty good. I was excited. I thought Ardie Savea was to come out in the second half and literally kill somebody, right? And I was pretty excited to watch the second half, to be honest. I was really happy. I was hyped. But then he came out later in the game and apologized. But afterwards, he was cited for the incident. So he was being cited for the throw slitting. And as a result, he's getting a 1-week ban for unsportsmanlike conduct. So the ruling is actually, so he got a yellow card for, yanking Carter Gordon out. And then the throw slitting will be a warning. So anytime a player receives a warning and a yellow card, or its equivalent of basically 2 yellow cards, it is considered like a red card essentially. So he was as a result pushed to attend the judiciary committee, and the judiciary basically determined that 2 incident acts together means that it's going to be banned for one week. So Ardie Savea misses that 1 week despite apologizing. So yeah, obviously the media gonna come out and try to paint Super Rugby Super Round as a positive. They say that due to speeding up the game, this whole 2 minutes played more on average than 2022 season, despite the fact that the sample size is only 2 weeks, but it's already 2 minutes longer than before. Oh my god, that's amazing! Like, surely there's no sampling error. It's just 2 weeks, right? That's enough to say that we have successfully speed up rugby by 2 minutes, guys. 2 minutes. And also, the average score is 78.8 points. It's like a basketball game every game, right? And that's a good thing, guys. 78 points, 0.8 points score every game. That's a good thing, according to the propaganda out of rugby, out of Super Rugby, right? Also, yeah, there was another incident with the Rebels game. Tavita Mafelio was suspended, or received a basically a red card, shoulder charge to a Rebels player on the ground, like in a dangerous clean out essentially, and he's going to be suspended for 3 weeks as a result. Also, let's move on to some rugby news before we look at some of the results from Super Rugby. So, Rugby Australia, obviously, Eddie Jones, what's Super Rugby? He's doing a lot of work in the background. So he had a meeting with Quade Cooper. They sort of hinted at Cooper, if he gets himself in shape, could potentially have a role for him in the Rugby World Cup. And I think the most important thing out of the Jones's week in terms of watching Super Rugby is that Jones has made it very explicitly clear that a close loss is no longer good enough. So the Rebels, a lot of people commend them for their efforts on the weekend, for basically hanging in very tight against the Hurricanes. Just falling a bit short in the last minute or so, and considering that the Rebels is like really bad last year, a lot of people thought this was a big success. Big improvement from the Rebels. Even I thought the Rebels were hugely improved, especially the 4-pack. And Eddie Jones basically come out and just put the hammer down and say, no, it's not good enough to lose even in close matches. It's just, you have to win. It's no longer like it's no longer like commendable to just have close losses against New Zealand teams. It's you have to win. There's no other way around it. There's nothing special about New Zealand teams. You just have to win, which I'm really happy to see that mentality being drilled, especially with Rebels. They tend to do this a lot, like especially last year. They do like they do like they get like a close loss, and the next week they just completely fall apart because because all the praises they've been getting for losing a tight match, suddenly they felt like they've won, right? So yeah, Eddie Jones really kind of like understand this sort of like mentality and just really stamped it out and just said, hey, close loss is no longer good enough. So yeah, some interesting stuff reviewed in terms of Wallabies training last year. So basically, the Wallabies had the highest injury year like ever. There was like 40-something players injured last year for the Wallabies. One of the person who was injured was, I don't think it was during the rugby camp, but one of the players was injured prior to going to Wallabies was Asi Vunivalu. And he came out in this interview, basically said that Dave Rennie was he basically accused Dave Rennie of like over pushing him, resulting in him not able to perform and also exacerbating his injuries essentially. So he was talking about how Rennie basically told him to just be speed, told him to really show him something during training, which led him to not able to putting his hamstring again and again and again during training, and as a result, he's struggled mentally to get himself in ready for the games because he normally builds himself up to maximum intensity at the game, not maximum intensity during training. So as a result, he was really struggling to get himself mentally prepared for the game. And this is some really interesting. And yeah, he was basically saying that the training schedule from the Wallabies affected his performance last year. As a result, we know that a lot of the Wallabies were having injury issues as well. Maybe there was some training issues from the Wallabies camp last year, which resulted in all the injuries that occurred to the team. So yeah, who knows? But we shall see if Suliasi Vunivalu is going to clearly improve this year or not. So some more news came out of Japan this week, last week. So yeah, this tells you like how serious the Japanese culture is when it comes to like respect. Basically, the Hino Red Dolphins, the team that Rory Arnold is plays for at the moment in Japan, the team has been basically cancelled for the whole season. Yes, Japan League One, I think, kicked the team out essentially for the whole season, banned the team from playing for the whole season as a result of a wild night in a nightclub that basically left the club trashed and basically waitresses harassed. allegedly harassed at the nightclub. And so yeah, basically this was a really big public, I guess, disgrace, and the League One, basically Japanese League One, yeah, cancelled the whole season, and as a result, Rory Arnold, while he's still gonna get paid, he has one of the biggest contract, for an Australian at the moment, $4.5 million. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to leave the club because he's got a 3-year deal. He's got like a year and a half to go, but he's not gonna be able to play in rugby. So he's going to have to make a hard decision. If you don't play any rugby, he's probably not going to be selected for the Rugby World Cup. But if he leaves, he's going to be forfeiting his big contract of $4.5 million. So, yeah, well, I mean, I'm actually really surprised at how hard the Japanese club, the Japanese league camped down on the club on this issue. Allegedly, obviously, Rory Arnold was not involved in the harassment sort of thing, but still, that's really, really tough. For Rory Arnold to be able to find himself a spot in Jones' team now. So going to South Africa for a bit, an interim CEO has been appointed, who is Rian Oberhoser. He was formerly the head CEO for South African Rugby from 1996 to 2003. Obviously, Jury Ru was, he basically resigned. There was some lawsuit against him for like inappropriately funneling money or something when he was working in his previous job, and then basically as a result of that, he has some like legal issues with that. Essentially, he was ordered to pay back the money, and he's basically, as a result of that, he's decided to resign from for South African Rugby Union. But so the interim has been appointed, the former CEO for South African Rugby. So quickly go through some Super Rugby results. Super round. Just like, it's so disappointing, the Super Round. It's supposed to be New Zealand versus Australia. That has gone out the window, and the matchups were just really, really bad. Like, it was just so many blowout games. It was really, like, not really that interesting to see. And also that, the scheduling was really bad as well. Like, the most interesting match between the Brumbies and the Crusaders were played in the afternoon instead of a Saturday night. And it's just all a big mess and schedule, not surprised, considering the stupidity that New Zealand Rugby came out last week, that this is what we got, right? So first game was Crusaders on Highlanders, big win for the Crusaders following their loss last week to the Chiefs. Highlanders is struggling quite a lot, missing a lot of that. Yeah, really missing a lot of toughness, I think, for the Highlanders. But yeah, 52 points, 15 for the Crusaders. Second test match, like I said, close loss for the Rebels, not quite good enough. 33 points to 39. Like I said, the second half here, the Rebels actually made a good comeback before Jordie Barrett scores in the corner to close out the game for the Hurricanes. This was, I thought the Rebels, the 4-pack for the Rebels really looked good on the weekend, especially in the second half. Hardwick, the set piece looked good, scored 2 tries for the Rebels to finish off his weekend. The third test match, this was Saturday night, main event. This was Saturday afternoon. The Chiefs beat the Moana Pacifica quite convincingly. Moana Pacifica did make a nice, comeback in the second half. But, yeah, Chiefs too strong, too polished, too good, essentially. Yeah, D-Mac really put the Chiefs on a different level, it seems, since he returned from Japan. 52 points, 29 Chiefs over the Moana Pacifica. Finally, the main event, Waratahs really, put the hammer down on the Jurors on the weekend. Really didn't want to see the Islander Nations gets a drubbing on a Saturday night. But this was the Jurors really hung in there. They really put the Waratahs out of the game. Just big hits, just huge hits all game. Physicality was really entertaining. Before the second half, the Waratahs finally, the structure, the set piece, really started to pay off for the Waratahs and put the Jurors away. And also the fatigue was a bit of an issue for the Jurors late in the second half. And finally, the game that everybody wanted to see, 20 points to 25. The Blues went down to the Brumbies. Saturday afternoon, extremely hot temperatures. Basically, this game was done at halftime. 25 to 20 was 20 to 25 was the halftime score. So not a single point was scored in the second half. Both teams looked burnt out. Rieko Ioane played pretty good, I thought, maybe in the second half. But yeah, overall, both teams looked really burnt out, really exhausted from the heat, and not a single point being scored. So I was really disappointed by the scheduling of this game, this should have been on Saturday night, to be played. And finally, another huge blowout of the weekend. The biggest blowout of the weekend, the Reds beat the Western Force, 71 points to 20. I never thought the Reds could score this many points, to be honest, and I didn't think that the Western Force was going to be this far back, considering they made a big comeback against the Rebels last week. It was showing a lot of positives for the Western Force, only for them to completely fall apart this week against the Reds. Again, the Reds were on the receiving end of the huge hidings by the Hurricanes last week, and to come back 71 points over 20 for the Force. I don't know what's going on with these performances, but it's just such a huge swing for all the teams, right? Like Hurricanes, huge win last week, barely scraping a win against Rebels. Rebels lost to the Western Force last week, and then barely lost to Hurricanes this week, and then Western Force gets winning last week against the Rebels and gets absolutely hammered by the Reds, whereas the Reds got absolutely hammered last week by the Hurricanes. What's going on with these teams? Nobody knows, but it is what it is. So let's move away to Europe a little bit. The Six Nations round 4 is coming up this weekend. So Wales has lost Alex Cuthbert to foot injury, so he will be missing out both the last 2 rounds of the Six Nations. So next up, the Scotland will be playing Ireland this weekend, and the Scottish team has bolstered some of their has caught up a few players due to injuries and match ban. So Rory Darge has been recalled into the team. He had an injury. He had returned to his club already, played for his clubs for 2 weeks already now. He's coming into the team. He's basically here to replace Grant Gilchrist. Is it Christ? Gilchrist. Yeah, Grant Gilchrist. I was told that it's pronounced Gilchrist because Grant Gilchrist received the suspension due to a high shot on Anthony Gillock against France. Also, Scotland has caught up Scott Cummins and Stafford McDowell and Simon Bergen. So Scotland has caught up a few players. And moving on to Ireland, 5 changes from the last outings. Some big names returning to the Irish team due to injuries. Ty Furlong comes in officially now to replace Finlay Bellum, who's ruled out with an injury. Nick Timoni comes in to replace Scott Penny, and also some injury terms. Kieran Frawley will be joining in as a debutant. Jameson Gibson Parks returns officially from his injury. Robbie Henshaw also returns for his injury. As a result, Joey Carberry is left out of the squad, and Colin Blade and Jamie Osborne also left out of the Irish squad going into against Scotland this weekend. So for France, a second tight head prop has been banned on the third round of Six Nations for France. So now they're gonna have to find, I guess, the third tight head prop to come in to finish off the season, the Six Nations. So Mohamed Hawass was called into the team to replace Antonio for a red card incident a few weeks ago now. So Hawass came in and put a high shot against in the Scotland game, which resulted in him getting banned for 3 matches as well. So now France is really struggling on the tight head proposition with 2 of their main tight head props out. Actually, I wouldn't say it's struggling. Is Demba Bamba available? Because Demba Bamba is quite a good tight head prop himself, but we shall see who's going to be in to replace the tight head proposition in a couple of days. And then Anthony Gillock, obviously he had one of the players who was involved in a high shot, and then later on he actually injured his knee, and his dad basically came out and called the French rugby negligence on his knee injury. His dad felt Anthony should have been taken off following the head shot, but Anthony was left back onto the field after passing his HIA, and whilst defending the try line, he had a serious knee injury, which his dad thought could have been avoided if he had been taken off due to the HIA. It's kind of like, anyway, either way, his dad is not really happy because Gillock, the knee injury as a result means that he's could potentially be missing out the entire Rugby World Cup. So his dad is very, very not happy about that. Moving on to England, Marcus Smith has finally been recalled to the England squad. Whether or not he's going to be starting on the bench for the number 10 jersey, we have to see what happens, but he's been recalled. And another big recall to the England squad is Manu Tuilangi is called into to the England squad. So Tuilangi has been left out, but he has not been informed, so maybe he might get a bench spot, maybe not going to get a spot at all, but at least he's recalled to the England squad for this weekend. So yeah, we'll have to see who's going to get selected for the French Le Crunch. Finally, last bit of news for South Africa. Curly Arendse, the guy who almost murdered Beauden Barrett, never forget, he has confirmed that he will be staying in the Bulls for another 3 years after the Rugby World Cup. So yeah, big retention for South African rugby. Big name now actually for South African rugby. He is the premier winger. He's selected ahead of Makazulu Mapimpi, and he's the one who famously stepped Marcus Smith against England, and yeah, probably should be arrested for trying to murder Beauden Barrett, but we shall see. Anyway, that's the news for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later this week for the previews rather, for Six Nations, and then the Six Nations review on the weekend. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.